In 1842, Sir John Herschel made the process blue. Welcome to the Visual Center. I'm Josh, and today we're going to be making cyanotypes. Cyanotypes were a process invented by Sir John Herschel in England in 1842. It's a process that combines two separate chemicals together, potassium ferrocyanide and ferric ammonium citrate, to create a blue image. Now, the cyanotype is an affordable introduction into the world of alternative and historic processes, which is basically any photographic process that is done using alternative or historic techniques. Now, I like to introduce people to cyanotype as the first process they try because it's affordable, the chemicals are readily available, and all you need for development is just plain old water. So here's a list of materials that you'll need for cyanotype. You have distilled water, your chemistry, a brush. Now, I like to use a brush that has synthetic bristles or something that doesn't absorb liquid, but for cyanotype, pretty much any old brush will do. Some sort of jar or something to hold your brush in, a shot glass, a couple of ramekins, some sort of watercolor paper, a couple of trays or something to hold water in that's big enough to fit your paper, and hydrogen peroxide. You will also need some sort of eyedropper bottle or eyedroppers to measure out your chemistry with. Now, as far as chemistry goes, I like to get my chemicals from a business called Bostic & Sullivan. They specialize in alternative and historic process chemicals. Now, what I like about these is they come with powdered chemistry inside of them, and all you have to do when you get them is fill them up with distilled water and shake them, and they're good to go. So as I said at the beginning of the video, cyanotype consists of two chemicals, a part A and a part B. Now, I have already poured some of my chemistry into these little dropper bottles, but if you don't have those, you'll have to use some either ramekins or some sort of container that can hold liquid so you can separate your two parts out. Or if you have an eyedropper long enough, you can just reach into your bottle to get the separate parts out. One other thing you're going to need is a contact frame. Now, a contact frame is basically a piece of glass with something behind it that allows you to sandwich the object you're making an image of between the glass and the paper. In this case, it's just a piece of wood with felt glued onto it and binder clips to hold the glass on. Now that we've talked about all the materials that you need, let's get started. I like to put down some sort of butcher paper or plastic to protect the surface I'm working on because these chemicals do stain. Okay, now the first thing you're going to want to do after you set up your work area is pour a little bit of distilled water in your brush container, which I've already done, and get the tip of your brush a little bit wet. That way you don't soak up as much chemistry as you brush onto your paper. The next thing you're going to want to do is measure out the amount of chemistry you need for the size of paper you're using. For this size of paper, I'm going to need about 20 total drops, or 10 parts of A, 10 parts of B. So you take your droppers, and all you do is count to 10 for each different part. This is part A. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And 10 of part B. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now that you have your chemistry measured out, you want to give it a little bit of a swirl to make sure it's mixed together. At this point, the chemistry is light sensitive, so you need to do this in an area where there's little sunlight. Now take one of your sheets of paper, place it in front of you. The way I like to do this, I take the shot glass in my left hand, and with one smooth motion, you're going to allow the chemistry to come out, and then you slide it across the paper really evenly and immediately start brushing. You start brushing in one direction and then you start going the other direction to make sure that the coating is nice and even. And you can switch directions and keep pulling that pool of chemistry along with you until most of the chemistry is soaked into the paper. Now, if you're finding that the chemistry is not soaking all the way into the paper, it just means that you use too much chemistry. So you would just take it back to 18 drops instead of 20 total, or 15 drops instead of 20 total. And you get better as you go, but it does equate to about 1 drop per square inch of paper that you need to cover. Okay, now all we have to do is wait for our coated paper to dry in a nice dark area so it doesn't get exposed to light, and then we're ready to print. Now the type of print that we're going to be doing today is called a photogram. And it's basically where you lay objects onto your paper and it prints the shape of that object, such as these ones right here. So let's get our coated paper in a cool, dry place, and we'll go outside and find something that we can put on our paper to make a print out of it. Okay, we are back from outside and we have our dried piece of paper, and I found this nice little sprig of lavender that I'm going to use for my photogram. Okay, now in front of me is my contact frame, and what we're going to do is we take off the glass and you put your print coated side up. Now just like any photography, you want to keep composition in mind and place your object in a way that's pleasing to the eye. Then all you do is put your glass back on top and you clip the binder clips back onto it. Now if you don't have a contact frame, I'll be making a video on how you can make one yourself, or you can also just put a sheet of glass over your photogram and make sure it's heavy enough that the wind or something doesn't blow it away. Now all we have to do is head back outside and get this exposing in the sun. When placing your contact frame, you want to make sure it's in full sun, and depending on time of year, you want to aim it directly at the sun by propping it on something, as I have done here with this rock. Since we're doing photograms, our exposure is going to be about 7 to 10 minutes. If it becomes cloudy, your exposure can be up to 30 minutes, which is why I recommend doing this on a sunny day. While we were outside, I set up our developing trays. Now both of these trays are filled with regular tap water, but this second tray, I'm going to put in a splash of hydrogen peroxide. Now the chemicals we use for cyanotype are iron-based, so when we put them in the water, they will start to oxidize or rust. This first water bath will be oxidizing our print and removing any of the excess chemistry that was not exposed to sunlight. Now the second tray with the hydrogen peroxide will allow the print to fully oxidize and become a brilliant deep blue color. Now this is what the print will look like when it's fully exposed. It changes from that bright yellow color to more of a dark greenish gray color, which is a good indication that it's fully exposed. Now let's pull the print out of the contact frame and get it developing. And this is what it will look like before it's developed. Now typically for the first bath, you want to have running water and you want it to rinse for about 12 to 15 minutes or until that yellow color in the highlights is gone. For demonstration purposes, I'll only be using this tray of water rather than the running water that is recommended. So let's go ahead and get this developing. Now you're going to start to see it change to a blue color, and you'll see that the yellow starts to run out of the highlights, and you'll want to agitate your water as that's happening. Now let's give this a good rinse and we'll come back to see what it looks like. Okay, all the yellow is out of the highlights, and this is what our photogram is looking like right now. See how it's more of a light blue color, and as we put it in the hydrogen peroxide, that will deepen up and get really dark blue. And you want to put it in really fast to really see that change happen. And see how it's pretty much instant. Now you only want it to be in the hydrogen peroxide for about 30 seconds, and that's all it really needs to get fully oxidized. And that is what our final image looks like. Now after the hydrogen peroxide, you're going to want to rinse it in running water again for about 10 minutes. And then all you have to do is hang it up on a clothesline, let it dry, and you're done. And that is making a photogram with the cyanotype process. Take a look in the description down below for links to all the materials we used in this video. Let me know any cyanotype questions you have down below in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe for more cyanotype videos. Click that bell for notifications, and we'll see you in the next video. There's a bug on my photogram.